Hi, I'm Ross Jacobs. Today's discussion is an ongoing discussion we've had in several videos regarding a horse's thoughts and their relationship to training. In particular, I want to talk about anxiety and the role that anxiety and control of anxiety plays in the process of training a horse. The first thing I want to make a note of is that probably the biggest single factor that gets in the way of us getting along with a horse is our inability to influence their level of anxiety. Anxiety plays a huge role in determining a horse's behaviour. It triggers the survival instinct. The more anxiety, the stronger the sense of survival, and a horse will do anything to survive. He'll even jump out of a building, run through a bushfire, run people over in order to survive. And most behaviour a horse weighs up in terms of life and death. So when anxiety is peaked, we are always competing with that anxiety to be able to influence what a horse does. The anxiety will determine his thoughts and what he's trying to do. And when that gets in the way of what we're trying to do, we're in for an argument. A big part of training horses and doing a good job of it is to be able to influence a horse's anxiety, be able to direct it, be able to change it. With that in mind, I want to talk about something that is possibly one of the most important principles that I've ever come across. As a tribute to that, I've called it the Law of Diminishing Anxiety. It's a very simple law. And what it states is that the further apart a horse's thoughts and his feet are, the greater the anxiety. Conversely to that, the closer in proximity a horse's thoughts and his feet are, the lower the anxiety. So if we want to minimize the amount of anxiety a horse feels, then the answer to that is simply to make sure that what he's thinking and what he's doing are really close. So let me give you a couple of examples that probably everybody has experienced at some point. Say you're taking your horse for a trail ride and his thoughts are back at the paddock with his friends. As you proceed out the gate and start to proceed down the road, your horse's thoughts are still stuck at home with his friends. And the further you go away from his friends and his thoughts, the greater the anxiety. So it might just start off, he's a little sluggish. And then as you go further down the road, he starts to shy at things he's seen a dozen times before. And if you go far enough down the road, he may start refusing to go forward. He may jack up and want to buck or spin around. Could get really bothered because his thoughts are really there. Now you turn that same horse around and head for home. He gets a hurry in his feet because he's going towards where his thought is, back at the paddock. He jig jogs and you can't really stop him. No matter how much rein pressure you use, he's still jig jogging. He goes sideways because he wants to hurry to get closer to home where his thought is. But as he gets closer and closer to home, the jig jogging becomes less severe, and pretty soon, within sight of being at the gate, he starts to walk again in a much more relaxed fashion. That's a really good example of the law of diminishing anxiety. You remove a horse further and further away from what he's thinking, the anxiety goes up. You bring a horse closer and closer and closer, to where his thought is, the anxiety decreases. And you see this every day in training. You see it in some form in every day. It could be in the arena and he gets fixated on being with another horse. It could be by the gate. It could be putting him into a trailer. His thoughts are outside. He refuses to go in. We do these things not knowing that we are creating anxiety by trying to make a horse do something irrespective of what his thought is doing. So I urge you to keep in mind the law of diminishing anxiety, and it should be a big factor in deciding what you do and how you do things with your horse. If the horse's thought and his feet are in close proximity, then the anxiety will be as low as possible. And that means you're much more readily able to influence a horse and direct him in a way that feels okay to him. But when the anxiety levels are high, the horse's thought and his feet are separated. Eventually it gets to the point where you're in a massive argument. And that gets in the way of training, it gets in the way of your relationship. So I urge you to think about that a little bit. It's an important concept, and perhaps in my book, one of the most important concepts. And it's behoving on all of us to try and influence a horse's thinking so that what we want him to do is the same thing he's thinking about doing. And then we have the best chance of getting along with them. Well, that's it for now until the next video. Good night, Alice, wherever you are.